Hi, America. My name is Savannah Lynn, and I'm the host of a political commentary podcast called The Savvy Truth. If you love God, love your family, and you love this country, you can tune in at Right American Media on Facebook or at ramtv.live. This podcast airs 7 Eastern and 6 Central.
Hey, this is Josh Barnes with Point of View, where we discuss the crucial questions that you have about the critical issues of our day from a biblical worldview. We believe that to be right about issues, you're going to have to be biblical about issues. Check out Point of View every Monday from 4 to 6 p.m. and every Tuesday night from 8 to 8:30 right here on Right America Media Network at ramtv.live. Join us for the next episode of Point of View and let the Bible change your perspective.
I'm Danny Wash Jr., producer of The Loaded Mic. I just wanted to let you know that you can find us at Simul TV, Right America Media, YouTube, and Rumble. You can also find the podcast at Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Play. Or you can go to loadedmic.com. Remember to like, share, subscribe, and leave a review.
Hey y'all, it's Savannah from The Savvy Truth with Right America Media. I'm just here to let all of y'all know that we are officially partnered with MyPillow. And so you know I'm telling the truth. Our discount code is RAM, capital R, capital A, capital M. So go use that code when you want to buy any of Mike Lindell's awesome sheets, awesome pillows, dog beds, towels, or whatever the heck you want to get. And our official MyPillow phone number is 800-867-0416. So please go use our code, go use our phone number, and go get some of Mike Lindell's awesome, all-American, made in America towels, sheets, dog beds, and pillows galore. So go check them out.
I am a raging patriot. Welcome to KSok Uncensored. Today we are focusing on Drew from Pennsylvania. So before we jump into all things Drew, I want to talk about something that happened to me personally just the other day. You may have seen my rant on TikTok, Instagram, or YouTube, but I'm going to tell it to you here live. So basically, I walked with my husband to go pick up my kids from school. I never do it. I'm always working, so I got away from the computer, yada, yada. We go to pick them up, and my husband said, if you don't wear a mask, I won't. I said, you know I'm not going to be wearing a mask. And he said, all the parents wear masks, even though it's an outdoor pickup. He's like, let's not do it. I'm like, I was never planning on it. But anyway, so he didn't wear his mask. He's right. Every single person there except us were all masked up to pick up their kids outdoors. So here's what I'm going to say. I might not have had the nicest remark back to this woman that insulted us, but I'm used to virtual insults, not in person. It's a whole new level. So a woman with another woman, so two larger women walking by us said, oh, apparently you don't do masks. And I thought about it for a second. I did whip around because, mind you, we were walking past each other. And I mulled it over for 0.5 seconds. And then I said, apparently you don't do broccoli. And my husband elbowed me and said that wasn't nice, which he's right. That wasn't nice. But that was my first in-person insult in quite some time. And that's what came out. But the fact of the matter is, here's what happened next. So I post my experience. Was I proud of myself? Slightly, yes. Wasn't the nicest thing to say. But I'm happy that I didn't just stay quiet and keep walking. That's what they want you to do. So what I did is I posted my experience on my social media platform. And when I did that, I received so many, I would say the majority of people were like, good for you. We have to stand up for ourselves. But I'll tell you what, a lot of my female followers were basically shaming me for saying something about weight. Like I've already said, not the optimal response. But the thing is, I got remarks like, you need to take the high road. Don't be, don't be like them. Now you're just as good as them. And that's where we need to stop. To me, women and men, I didn't receive any of those from men, I will be honest. Women, especially conservative women, knock it off. You need to stop being part of the problem. It is time that we fight back. And no, it doesn't need to be insults about somebody's weight, but we need to stop just standing around and allowing things to happen to us, to allow our beliefs to be attacked, our morals, everything we stand for is under attack right now. And so I'm not going to take the high road at this point in time. That road has been taken for decades. And where has it gotten us? It's made us weak. We are weak as a party. And the party that goes low, they have all the power right now. So in my opinion, I feel that we need more people, more conservatives that would generally be quiet and just kind of walk away. We need more reactions. You know, going back, if I actually had a little more time to think about it, I would have said something along the lines of, "Oh, please mind your own business," or, you know, something like that. Or I would have asked her, "Why do you feel the need to make a comment like that?" But my inner country girl came out, and I went with what I went with. But I truly feel that the people that were giving me flack in my social media comments are the people that are making us weak as a party. And you know, that ship, the ship has sailed. The ship that is full of not being like them, not hitting the streets, not peaceful protesting. We need to be out there, you guys. Enough is enough of the niceties. That ship has sailed. So I hope that this resonates with some of you, because it's just something where I am a nice person who does not like to have to put my armor on every morning, but I have to, living here, unfortunately. And it is every time I have to go to the grocery store and put a mask on, I feel like I've been kicked. And so it's one of those things where it's tiresome to not only be putting your armor on, but then not fighting back in a sense. And so I'm not going to just stand idle while I continue and we continue to be attacked. So it is what it is, but it was a pretty interesting experience. And it is funny that my police officer husband told me I wasn't being very nice. I told his mom about it, and she's like, "Oh, that's so funny. You guys are like the reverse. Usually it's the husband saying something and the wife's embarrassed." But no, I'm definitely the crazier one of the two. But that's my story. I hope it resonates with some of you. The niceties are done in my book. But what I'd like to do, let's bring on Drew. We have Drew here, and he is a former law enforcement officer in the Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania area. Hey, Drew.
How you doing? Great to have you. Great to see you.
You as well. You know, it's so cool to have you on, Drew, is because you've been an active subscriber and you watch my lives, and I appreciate it so much. And I always see your little name pop up with the comments. And I'm so happy that you're on here, and I just appreciate you so much.
Yes, I appreciate everything that you have done to promote everything that you're doing, and it's it's a wonderful thing to have a voice that actually can be heard. With today, it's just so hard anymore.
It so is. Before we get into the meat and potatoes, what I want to do is say Drew has won me over for life, and here's why. And I don't forget people that do things like this. So last weekend, my Chihuahua ate some of that erythritol, or I'm probably saying that wrong, but that fake sugar, and that's incredibly toxic for pets. This ties into the COVID restrictions that are here in Oregon. So basically, I needed to take my dog to the emergency vet to get her stomach pumped because I wasn't aware of the in-home remedies such as, hydrogen peroxide. So I go to bring her to an emergency vet. I call the first one that I've taken them to for years, and they said, "We're at COVID capacity. We're not accepting any animal emergencies at all." She's like, "I have a line of 20 people on the phone waiting to ask me questions that are emergencies." So that tells you how crazy these COVID restrictions are. I call 2 more neighboring emergency vets, same thing. Oh, we're at COVID capacity. And they directed me to this SH hole, downtown Portland, which is amongst where all the homeless are. They said that I could either go there or I needed to go across the river to Vancouver, Washington. I mean, it's so asinine. So I literally said to the last lady, I said, so you're allowing people's pets to die because you're complying with COVID restrictions. She said, sorry. So anyways, where this ties you in, Drew, is that I posted my frustration on YouTube. And Drew, you're so amazing. Like, I see comments from you saying that you were able to get in contact with one of your friends who's a vet, and they were there live, able to give me pointers on what to do for my dog. I was able to get your phone number and we talked, and I ended up doing what your vet told you to tell me to do. I rubbed sugar on her gums, etc., and she's fine. And
That's amazing.
The kindness that you showed me, that I will never forget. And so I just want you to know that, and I'm very, very appreciative.
Thank you. I mean, it's the least to any family, as far as I'm concerned. So, your husband and myself, we stick together, and that's just always how it goes. But when I have a special care for animals, obviously, too. Maybe sometimes more than humans, but no, I'm kidding. But it's in reality, it's the way it works is, I mean, like you were saying before, they're helpless. I mean, they need somebody to advocate for them, and we have to stand up and be able to support that. But when I knew I could help, I've always been that type of person ever since I was little. If I knew I can help, I will, and that's kind of what geared me into becoming a police officer. But
awesome.
yeah, I mean, I networked. I have many friends from all different hats of life, and and if I can help anybody, I'm always willing to offer a helping hand. So I'm glad it worked out.
Well, I'm so glad that we're virtual friends now that actually have each other's phone numbers, because, it was funny. My husband was sleeping because he had worked the night before when all this was going down, and he came home and I tell him about it. And then I told him how you helped me. And then he was like, were you really going to pay the money to bring her to the emergency vet? And I'm like, oh, I'm going to knock you out, buddy. So yeah.
Money's not an option when it comes to it, but you're right.
Concerned about the emergency vet fee. I was like, So anyways, and I'm feisty, but yeah. So, I mean, thankfully she's fine. Thanks to you,
right.
But good Lord.
I mean, she looks like an amazing little pup too. It's Chihuahua, right?
Yeah.
She's Chihuahua, yeah. Yeah, they're not cheap dogs.
You live in Manhattan right now, and I lived in Queens, and the apartment, you look like you're in a luxury high-rise there, but I had a tiny little apartment in Astoria, Queens, and we could only get a Chihuahua. I wanted a dog, and that's the only dog that would really fit. So,
right. Yeah, they do have a weight capacity. I think it's like 30 pounds or something less that you're allowed to have. So kind of limit your options.
Totally, absolutely. So I know you're in Manhattan now, but you born and raised in Pennsylvania, Philadelphia area.
Yes.
And law enforcement in the Philadelphia area for almost 20 years.
Yes, and just to go back, I didn't want to confuse anybody. I think there was a misconception on Pittsburgh versus Philadelphia, but it's fine. You're right.
Oh, that's my fault.
It's okay. Everybody understands. Sorry. It's fine. It's Philadelphia area. So
it's a big difference between. That's not the first time I've done that. Oh my gosh.
It's only a 6-hour difference. I could have made it every day.
Oh my gosh.
But
sorry.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. No, it's. I didn't want to correct you, but it was or interrupt you, but just so everybody understands, it was Philadelphia area.
Philadelphia area. Thank you. I'll have to remind myself cream cheese. Visual aids. All right. Talk to us about it. Let's hear I want to hear your experience.
I mean, from the beginning, it was exactly that, an experience. I graduated the academy year 2000, just prior to 9/11. And it was a lot to absorb it all at once. and I was actually assigned to a rather interesting section. Our unit was specifically designed to patrol and maintain the housing complex. So we did Section 8 public housing area. Um, for lack of better words, we were in the middle of where everything began. So it was a learning experience at its best. Definitely some place you want to start if you're going to look into becoming a police officer in a city. There is a difference between city police officers and local municipality police officers out there. Just not based off of what we can and can't do, but about the experience that we absorb in such a short amount of time versus, if you work in a local suburb or something like that, you may not see shooting or homicide as frequently as we did. But it was rated by per capita one of the worst cities on the East Coast. So I'm not sure exactly where they stand today, but I'm sure they're somewhere up there in the 10 range of worst cities. So it was an interesting place.
Yeah, no, it sounds like it. Okay, so when you and I spoke, you told me about like you were 2 weeks on the job and you had a wild incident
Wild
happen to you. I
experience.
was hoping to tell the viewers about that.
Honestly, for most, this would have been like the, okay, what, this isn't for me type of,
Right.
experience. But I was, I was assigned to last out, which is commonly known in law enforcement as the midnight shift, or where you're the first shift of the actual physical day. Um, so I'm on patrol. It was probably around 2 a.m. around that time. And I have a vehicle pulled up to me in an intersection. This is my second week on the street, mind you. So I'm just happy to help anybody, and I just want to, to be there for everybody. And the guy comes up to me, puts his window down a little bit, just as much, and he reaches over, and I'm thinking the guy's asking for directions, at best, because there was a casino being built in the area. But it was just one of those things where, I said, hey, what can I do to help you? And he puts his window down and he reaches over his passenger seat with a loaded 45 and blasts off with 6 rounds.
Oh my
Six
gosh.
rounds of gunshot that I did not expect. And
Oh my gosh.
it, I was literally not even concerned about whether or not if it hit me at that point. I was it it hit across the window, it hit my light bar on the roof of the police car. I mean, everything. I mean, except me. And
Wow.
uh, he takes off, shuts his headlights off, and goes flying down the highway. And I catch up to him, and I notice that he starts to lose a little bit of control on his turn, and I was able to push him into a telephone pole. Um, Unfortunately, that was the only way to actually stop this guy from continuing on. My biggest concern wasn't at that point. Still, it wasn't me. If I was leaking, I didn't know yet. But
Yeah.
for what it was worth, I was just concerned about getting him off the street. And that's the mindset. It was the training that we went through. It wasn't about anger or frustration about what he had just done. And I
Right.
think it's a lot of misconception about like where people confuse, like, the cops are after them because they're angry and they want to come after them. All right, my
Right.
focus was just simply getting this guy off the street. I didn't want him to hurt anybody. And,
Absolutely.
he fortunately, came to a misdirection and he slid into a pole. And unfortunately, he's a paraplegic now for life.
Oh wow.
But that was as a result of the accident. Nothing of our doing. But he, was questioned by the detectives, and they told, he told the detectives, I should say, that it was gang initiation. You have to shoot at a cop. So that was, and
You
he
know,
was only 17
in the
years old.
movies, you hear that in the movies, but that's legitimately gang initiation is to shoot a cop.
Well, per se,
Wow.
shoot at a cop was his,
Yeah.
didn't say whether or not. So, I
Wow.
mean, I think I might have been on the lucky spectrum where you didn't have
Yes.
to actually shoot a cop, but,
Oh my gosh.
it was,
You had guardian angels all around you. I mean,
I,
seriously, to have
I do.
six shots fired at you and not a single one land. I mean, oh my gosh. That's insane. And it's unfortunate that he's a paraplegic now, but you know what? Actions have consequences, and unfortunately, that's where he's at. And possibly. I wonder where he's at today, but you never know. Maybe he didn't end up joining the gang, and maybe he's done something with himself. I don't know.
I can
Maybe
only
not.
hope.
I see gangsters in
We,
wheelchairs downtown Portland.
this is true. Sometimes it's a badge of honor, for some, and it's unfortunate. But ironically, it wasn't anything to do with like a Bloods or a Crips or MS-13. It was just a local, type of gang. It wasn't like
Uh,
somebody that knows everything about like all these different affiliations.
right.
They just organize themselves and they have their own rules, and unfortunately that was one of them.
That's rough. I just thought of something. This is kind of gross, but my husband, there's a couple of them, but there's known gangsters that are in wheelchairs, like paraplegics from gang shootings. And now they're older, but they're still hanging out with their friends, and they're in wheelchairs now. But one of them was arrested at some point in the last 5 years, and my husband put him in the back of his police car, and the colostomy bag opened up on the seat in the cruiser, and he had to clean it
Never a
up.
good smell. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Fortunately,
He's like, he said that was
fortunately,
like
in the back of our cars, we had we had a regular person vomiting or something that we picked up. So we actually have
yeah.
plugs in the bottom of our seat canyons that you can actually lift up and
Oh,
just hose out the whole back of the car. You know, it
oh,
was so hopefully
I
they
don't know.
didn't have that kind of mess, but
His is like hard plastic, so they are pretty
right.
easy to
Yeah.
wash, but he still had to do more than he wanted to. But I was like dry heaving when he told me about that. I'm like, oh no. But
Still smell it,
no, you don't. Well, okay, so that's wild. I mean, thank God you're okay, and it's just incredible. People have no idea what law enforcement deals with. I'd love for you to tell. I know you talked about, just when we were talking about how you were helping me out with my animal, and how you really have a heart to help people. Like, that's on your heart. And I loved when you were telling me about how you interacted with the community while you're in law enforcement. And do you mind
Yes.
telling us a little bit about, especially, I liked that you played, basketball and that type of thing.
Yeah, no, I mean it was great. I mean, like I had a wide range of children that we were always around, and you know, um, unfortunately, when you grow up in certain lifestyles and communities, you don't get certain experiences to deal with anything outside of where you live. I mean, it was a shame that some didn't even see a mall or a movie theater. Since they were alive, and some of them were 12 and 15 years old. Just the experience of leaving the neighborhood. But I always believed in interacting with the community. It's always best to be on speaking terms with anybody, but especially the community that you patrol. On my lunch break, I would get out of the car and go on the basketball court and say, hey, can I play? And they were just kind of like shocked at first, like, well, you want to play with us? And they're 12, 15 years old, nothing. I mean, they're still taller than me. I'm 5'11", but it's just one of those things where they, absorbed the fact that I wanted to play, and that was great. And they welcomed me. And, I was always known in the community as somebody that was willing to listen to somebody if they had a question or problem or didn't understand. I would take the extra time to, explain to them why it is what it is. And I mean, it's one of the reasons why I've always believed that law should be taught in school itself, educational wise as part of a curriculum, just so there's a better understanding with the public and community about,
Right.
why things happen, you know. But for what it was worth, we, had a great relationship. I got along with pretty much everybody there. You always have a handful of people that just don't like you because of who you are,
Right.
and that's just something we deal with in life. I look
Yeah.
past that. I grew up in the neighborhood that was, multicultural, and I never knew what racism was, to be honest with you. I mean, I was always told this is what it is, but I was like, why? You're either a normal person and we're cool, or you're a jerk and we don't want anything to do with you. But it had nothing to do with your color, your
Right.
skin.
Right.
and it's just, I don't understand why people think that that's, a problem today. I mean, racism obviously exists anywhere, no matter what country you go to. But I still honestly believe that the United States is probably the least racist country in, the world, as far as, perspective is concerned. But um, we were fine before this new administration, and it just seems like that they wanted to separate us for their own reasons. But as
Right.
long as we can
Exactly.
look past that, and see that it's not about that. But I mean, in the
They knew
community,
exactly what they were doing.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. They knew exactly what they were doing with the race baiting. I mean, it's just like you said, it's all over the world. I'm so sick of people saying, "Oh, America's so racist." It's crazy. I'm like, you can go to Japan. That's one of the countries I want to visit. You go there, and just because you have light colored hair, everyone wants a picture with you, and that's not offensive. That's like it's because you're unique and you're different, like in their territory, right? So it's like it's
Right.
one of those things where people get so frustrated. I watch all of these, YouTube videos and just things on Instagram, and it's like, it's usually people saying, "Yeah, my hair is a different texture. That doesn't mean you can touch it, or don't compliment it. Why are you complimenting hair?" It's just like it's so hypersensitive, and it really, for me, it's like, why can't we embrace and celebrate our differences versus be told we're not even allowed to act as if they exist? Like that's creating so much division. And the same thing with law enforcement. I mean, you're talking about like your experiences is you're a human interacting with other humans. And but yet law enforcement is just all grouped together. They're all rotten. Even, when the truth of the matter is it's like maybe 3% is a not great law enforcement officer. So you're spot on. I don't believe that racism was ever a real
Three.
problem, at least in the last 2 decades. Um,
Right.
they've manufactured it.
I mean, you're going to have that 3% in any category of profession. There's always going to be that group that, just you cannot, no matter what you do, get along with them. I mean, I had it in my department with guys that I worked with that are supposed to be, my backup and brothers that were like,
Right.
"Yeah, you're just here, and you do your thing, and we'll do ours." And I just, it happens because people have their own personal problems, and they
Right.
try to, share that off to you, and it's not how it works. I
Right.
mean, I do believe in, one main thing in life, by protecting and serving only one race, and that's the human race, you know.
I completely
Um,
agree. Drew, we have a visitor. Hold on a sec. I've got to grab.
Visitor.
She just busted into the office here, and I have the
That's
doors
amazing.
shut. She knows how to get in, and so I was like, "Oh, how
Look at her.
perfect!" We were talking about her. So she's alive and well. She's my little grandma Chihuahua. She's 14, so she's got a few years left. But anyways, she wanted to say hi.
Oh, that's amazing.
Sorry.
Thanks for having her. That's great. Perfect timing.
She's left me. Oh my gosh. But anyway, so that's who you helped me save. So thank you.
That's amazing.
Uh, but yeah, so no, your experiences are wild. So what I want to do, I know, so you're in Manhattan now, and I know you're
Yes.
engaged. So that's exciting news. And she's a New Yorker, right?
Yes. 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 Yes.
All right. And I'm married to a New Yorker, so you have to watch out for them. They're sassy.
She's a hot one. Her family. Actually originally, she was originally born in Ecuador. So she's
Oh,
been here about 16 years. So
oh, very cool. Very cool.
she's a spicy one.
I love it. I love it. I feel like men, especially strong men, they need a very strong woman. I really feel that way. Either they're going to go for someone who's really submissive, or they're going to go for someone who can call them on the carpet. And I think that's good. I think strong men such as yourself, I feel like, need that really strong woman who's going to say, "Nah, call you on the carpet." So
Yes.
good. That's great. That's fantastic. So I hear we've spoken a bit, and it sounds like you guys are entertaining moving to a red state.
Yes. And the simple fact behind that is just the way New York looks. When I first moved here, New York was the place to be. And in that little bit of time, New York simply just fell. They have no leadership anymore. As far as like the residents that are moving out by the droves, I mean, it's crazy. I mean, I think I read something that was somewhere along the lines of 250 people per, I believe it was day, that were leaving. At one point, I don't know if I'm sure that's slowed down a little, but we were at a capacity at one point of 8.62 million people. And I think we've lost at least 14% of that. It's ridiculous. But nobody wants to stay here because it's a revolving door with the crime, as your husband can entertain that. I mean, you lock somebody up and 24 hours or less, they're back out in the street doing the same thing.
Right.
The subway systems are terrible as far as safety is concerned. We
Right.
should have, better protection for the people and they're trying. I mean, I will give them that. They do have more officers than they used to down in the subway service systems, but you're just it's hit or miss. And unfortunately, most of the time that's with somebody possibly being pushed in front of a train when they say hit or miss.
Yeah.
It was
People don't
happening
realize
actually almost.
that's not just
Right.
in the movies. People get pushed in front of the subways. I mean, and that's not a way to go. That's nasty. That is just, yeah, that's
And
scary.
there's a two factor involved in that. I mean, if you get pushed onto the tracks, the worst case scenario is you got a bump or a bruise. I'm sorry, best case scenario. The worst case scenario is, obviously get hit by a train, but
Mm-hmm.
that light at the end of the tunnel, you don't want to go towards. But you also have a high electrical line that runs through. It's called the third rail. That if you touch that, that's going to instantly fry you. So
Oh, I didn't even think about that. Yeah. Oh
yeah,
my gosh, it's
super
crazy.
super dangerous.
So much. Well, I commuted. So I lived in Astoria, Queens, the Greek district of Queens, and then I worked in the Empire State Building. And so I would commute in via subway every day, and that was, though I felt safe for the most part, there were times that I felt really on edge while on the subway. And I mean, I remember thinking like, you're locked in this car with people that you don't know from Adam. You don't know. A lot of them are experiencing some type of oh gosh, what's they call them emotionally disturbed people in New York and
EPs,
NYPD. EDP, like what am I allowed to say now? What am I not? But yeah, so the EDPs. I mean, you're in there with them, and it is scary because it's just so unpredictable. I mean, the morning crew is like the same people that you see every morning, so I felt all right. But now, Drew, you mentioned like the revolving door of crime, and I've been back in Oregon for 12 years now. But when I lived there, there were still, there was still law and order for the most part. I moved out in 2009. But now you think about what the DA is, there, would you guys have, is it the bail reform that passed January 2020, I believe. And so you don't have to pay bail. You can just get out on your own recognizance. And so you say, ROR, return on
Yes.
recognizance. You say, yes, I will be there. I will be there for my court date. BS. Nobody's going to be there for their court date. And they let you out and you go commit another crime and it happens all over again. And there are zero repercussions for these people. And so you want to talk about Asian hate crimes. Half the crimes that are happening on the streets in New York City are against Asian people, and it's not white people doing it. So
Exactly.
it's just like, when are we going to hold people accountable? But in New York City, like, how do you feel walking down the street? I know you carry, but how do you feel? Like, do you feel safe? Do you feel on edge?
I don't think that I am very approachable to most people. So I think that kind of works in my favor.
Yeah.
250 pounds, 6 foot almost. So I'm walking down the street with a little more confidence than most. But as far as it's concerned, yes, I still have, that mindset where it sits in your mind that you need to be aware of your surroundings all the time. And most of the time, from behind. You take caution to things that you normally wouldn't have in life before. Especially like something simple as standing in line at a store. It just you really feel like you're put on a sense of awareness that you have never been on before.
Right.
And like I said, when I first moved here, New York was well managed. It seemed, the system worked, and when the police officer locked you up, you were worried about getting locked up. Now it's just like,
Right.
oh, go ahead, lock me up.
Right.
It
Yeah. Doesn't
it
even
almost
bother.
almost the way that the protection from abuse orders work. We would tell our residents, just go and file this paper that's supposed to protect you, and if he comes back and kills you, give us a call. And we
I know.
unfortunately that we didn't say it in those words, but it was the way that the law had our hands tied, and that was because of people protesting, demonstrating against their rights, of freedoms. And
Right.
every time that they do that, they don't realize that it actually makes our job harder to do to protect them when they need our help.
Right.
And what happened was, people will, say, hey, this guy's after me. And then we can't do anything because he's just after you. He
Right.
didn't do anything to you yet. Call us when he does
Right.
something to you. And
I
I
know.
hated
It's
to be
terrifying.
that person, and I mean, working in law enforcement is not for everybody.
No.
Some people wake up one day and they say, hey, you know what? That sounds like a fun career. I'll try that out. And they're usually the ones that don't work out too well.
Right.
Generally, it's something that's in you when you're a child. And
Yeah.
you have to be that, it has to be in your heart to want to be able to help people. And
Right.
there is a difference between good and bad cops because of that, because some put a badge on every day and walk out the door and they think that they should be respected. And that's not how it works. It's respect is earned, definitely.
Absolutely.
It is how you speak to people. It's not how you want to be treated, but it's how you treat others, you
Right.
know,
Yes.
and you don't have to come off on everybody, this is what I'm telling you to do it now. And if you don't listen, these are the consequences. That's not how life works. I mean, it is, but in general, it doesn't have to work that way as an interaction, and
Right.
when you're able to actually speak to somebody, just like you and I are talking, and say, hey, listen, you know what, this is why I stopped you, because it seems like there was some type of, safety issue going on. And I just want to make you aware of it. Law enforcement's not about always just locking people up. And I'm glad I
Right.
learned that early, because that's what every cop wants to do when they first get out of the academy. They want to go and lock up the world and save the world, because they think that kind of, that's the thing. But it really isn't. It's not about locking up the world. It's about teaching. Being a police officer is most importantly about teaching. And I believe in teaching the law to people and better ways to handle things to be safer is the objective, not going out there and just giving everybody fines and locking them up for anything you can think of.
Right.
That
Exactly.
doesn't change anything.
Right. You're so
Reform
right. And
doesn't.
yesterday when we were sorry, Drew, yesterday when we were talking, you had mentioned that you feel that there should be a class in high school taught on just basic law, just basics to where people just have enough to be able to know better. And I couldn't
Exactly.
agree with you more. Like, let's teach them something they can use. Not let's, stop with this critical race theory. Let's actually like teach skills, banking, a little bit of law so that they can be equipped to just live in the real world. And
Exactly.
I think that's so smart.
One of the most important things, especially here in New York, should be vehicle law.
Oh,
It's just
yeah.
like, it's insane how many people just get their license and they start driving here in the city. This is one of the hardest cities to drive in.
Oh my
And for
gosh.
somebody who has never had a license and they're, all of a
Oh,
sudden, like, 30 years old and they just get a license, they're like, what do I do?
yeah.
I mean, they have schools, which are recommended before you get your driver's license, but not everybody takes
Here's your little hello,
here
please
either.
take a class. I know. All right. Well, I have a funny for you. When I first moved, when I moved to New York City, I lived in Battleground, Washington, out in the country. So I went from like a country bumpkin to New York City, and my in-laws lived on Long Island at the time. So I was coming into town to see an apartment, and I drove from Long Island to Queens, and I was like, oh my gosh, this great parking spot, because I was all nervous that I wasn't going to get a good parking spot. I park and I go meet my husband. We find an apartment, yada, yada. Turns out I parked in a bus zone and I got like a $350 ticket. My husband was so mad at me. But I was like, and they saw the Oregon plates. I'm sure they were like, she's getting a big one.
Yeah. And that, too, that's unfortunate. When I first moved here from the Philadelphia area, it was totally different with parking fines. Meter expirations example, I think it's like $215. I'm sorry, I apologize. 115. I think their handicap is something greater, something around like $300 or $400. But if you make a mistake and your meter expires in, say, like Philadelphia City, it's like a $25 fine. It's a big difference.
Yeah, that is
in the cost.
Oh my gosh!
They have.
I don't miss having to move the car every other day for the garbage trucks. I hated that. And I don't know if you have it, but I had one of those bumper guards that hangs out of your trunk, so you can pretty much
the bumper diapers.
Yeah, the bumper diaper. I totally, so that when you park, you bump your way into the spot. I'm like, that's what you do. It's like being on Mario Kart in New York City. I'm serious. I drove in New York City. It's like Mario Kart. You have to just realize people are going to be all around you. You have obstacles coming at you, and you just got to do your best to stay on the road. Oh,
yes. If you have a car that you don't want bumped, you definitely need one of those bumper guards because they're amazing to have because not everybody knows how to park, and that's the first thing you need to learn here.
Yeah, no, I'm good now. I could park an F-350 in the crack of someone's butt. Like I've got it down. But if it wasn't for New York City, I mean, that threw me in. I remember once in Portland when I was going to go downtown to eat with my sister years ago. The only spot open was a parallel park, and I was like, oh God, this isn't going to go well. And there were people dining outside. It was the summer. And I slaughtered that parallel park so bad, I just drove off and we went somewhere else. People were watching me and laughing at me. It was so embarrassing. But if you grow up a place that you have a driveway and you don't need to know how to parallel park, why do you need to learn it? Then all of a sudden it's like it's different. Oh my gosh! All right. So I have to know, Drew, do you have one of those little like grandma carts that you use when you go grocery shopping? The ones that you push down the street?
Oh, I know what you're talking about. No, I do. We had one because they're convenient for doing laundry. We have a laundry where in our complex we actually have our own laundry facilities. So we got to walk down into the courtyard and go over to our building for the laundry room. But other than that, we use Fresh Direct. They're amazing.
Oh, that's so smart.
Yeah, you can buy online and instantly figure out what you need. Yep.
Yeah, no,
Fresh Direct is amazing.
Oh my gosh! Here's the thing: is someone popped up? I think it was Chris from Ohio. He's like, I can't even imagine this. But I will tell you the things I hated the most about living in New York City. One, the grocery shopping, Arkansas. Oh, you don't have to even know how to parallel park to get a license in Arkansas. Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing because I'm not great at that still. Thank God for the rear cams. That's like a lifesaver. But I hated grocery shopping, Drew. It was like all the grocery stores coming from like suburbia here, they hardly had anything. It was like they had a third of what I needed. And so I'd have to go to multiple just to get what I wanted. And then I would line my arms with the bags and carry them until I got smarter and ended up buying a granny cart.
Yes.
Horrible.
They're
horrible.
helpful. They're super helpful to have, definitely, because everything is walking here.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, and it was just crazy experiences like that. And it was funny when we moved back here. I was like, let's just drive to the grocery store, like something that I had totally taken for granted before, or doing my laundry in my house. I mean, seriously,
Right.
that was rough. My entire Sunday would be dedicated to laundry. I'm like, no. And then And then it's not like I like to fold my laundry when it's like fluffed and hot. No, you can't
Right.
do that because someone's already thrown it in a cart because God forbid you were 30 seconds late to getting it after the buzzer went off. So someone's touching your
Stay
underwear.
with your clothes. Yes, yes. Ew. It's just
I
I
know. And
don't.
there are
I stay with them the whole time.
smart. I should have. But the thing is, the laundromat by my old apartment, it was like they played Spanish soap operas, and and it was before smartphones. And so you're just sitting there like staring at the wall pretty much. And so I would leave, and then yeah, things would happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's convenient to have one just for your building, because it's just privatized to just you. So I mean, that
Right.
is a little easier.
That is nice. All right,
Some
Drew,
things
we
I'll
have
miss.
5 minutes left. I want to ask you to talk about where you're at today, because I know that you've thrown around moving to a red state, but then I know you also have a great. Juan said, "There's nothing wrong with Spanish soap operas. There's nothing wrong. I just don't understand what the hell they're saying." Oh gosh, but I
Completely
want to
just
know.
froze up. I'm not sure if you can hear me.
Oh, we good now?
Okay. Yes.
All right, cool. But I want to know from you. I know that you and I talked about your business plan and what you're looking to do. And actually, my brother-in-law was talking about doing the same thing here in Portland because the bodyguard service or the bodyguard industry, oh my gosh, in a blue state, it's so needed. So, like I said, we have 4 minutes now. Can you tell us a little bit about what you're looking to do and then the tie back into helping women, like you talked about before, that need that escort? Not a
Yes,
male
definitely.
escort, but like
Not that kind of escort. But yes, definitely. I want to bring a business that actually I started in Pennsylvania, and I did it kind of like on the side, but I want to bring it back here and start it up again here in New York. And basically, what I want to do is be able to offer assistance to people who don't have the thousands of dollars to pay for a bodyguard service and that need some type of protection. That unfortunately, the police officers, our hands are tied when it comes to, like I was saying earlier, certain things. And there is one major problem that is experienced throughout every city with domestic issues, and that's involving somebody who comes and threatens you, and you have to go file a protective abuse order, but you get threatened, and some are afraid to do it, and they never file the papers, and nothing happens. So now if they have something where we can work out through the courts, even I don't care, even like a type of community service relations thing, I want my agency to be able to help out, helping women get to their court hearings and be able to go and feel safe to file to get these jerks off of the street that are harassing and threatening them, and that's the best that we can do. Then we will. We're always going to do what we can, to try and help the community out as well any way we can, and that's one of the main things I want my organization to focus on, as well as just basic protective services for people who actually need it, that can afford a better quality of retired, or now we're saying resigned, police officers
Right.
who no longer want to work in that field because the private sector is actually more profitable for everybody.
Right.
And unfortunately, it goes that way. But I actually like it better in some ways because we can do more. We're not restricted as much as a law enforcement officer is. So it actually seems like it's going to be a good adventure to look forward towards. And, we're slowly building it, but we should get there within the next year or so and be able to start helping people again. So
I think that's awesome. I may have to put you in touch with my brother-in-law who's like, he's thinking about doing it here. And because he was like immediately after the whole inauguration, the fake inauguration, whatever. Once that happened, I was just so upset. And he's like, here's the upside. I can make a lot of money with some type of like bodyguard service. And I was like, okay.
yes.
I totally see that though, because it is dangerous in blue cities like ours and ours. So I think that's a really good idea. And like you said, you have plenty of ex-law enforcement, ex-military that would be happy to do that for a living. So really cool.
And the transition will be easy too, because they're already trained. So, I mean,
Right.
the best thing about it is, we have a group of guys that are already trained, certified, and they care about, people's lives. and helping them, is important to them most. So that's what we want.
Exactly.
We can give
That's
work to
great.
the guys when they come home, and that's also
So cool.
very helpful too.
Absolutely. No, I think that's great. Juan said we have a little bit longer. So I was going to touch on one thing here. Something that drives my husband absolutely crazy is when he arrives on a domestic violence call and he's taking the report, and then he asks usually it's a woman filing the report, and he says, "Are you going to show up for your court date?" And they're like, no, I don't want to press charges. It just drives him absolutely crazy because he's like, and I think this probably he speaks for most law enforcement officers. They're like, why do you call us if you're not going to press charges? Why do you call us? I mean, all they're doing is putting the fire out for that moment in time, putting their life on the line, because domestics have the highest amount of police officer murders. And I mean, it's just insane. And then they're not going to press charges. And I know it's like a cycle of abuse, and I've never been there and I never want to be, but so it's difficult for someone like me to understand. But I think what you're talking about doing by being able to support these women more, it's going to encourage more women to actually press charges and to get out of that situation. So I think that's really admirable and so needed.
It is.
Absolutely.
And it like you're saying, it is a shame that, they really, you call the police and we come, and we're kind of just like to kind of scare them away for the meantime, and that's not what we're supposed to be used for, and we're not helping them if, like you said, they're not going forward with their end, and they need to be able to follow through and to do it properly. Sometimes at that point they're threatened, that if you do follow through, that they will be killed. And unfortunately, there's been situations that occurred.
Right,
So,
exactly. Yeah, it's scary. It is. It's like I've never been in it, so I can't 100%. It's kind of like when my sister is in recovery. You saw the episode. She's was an addict for so long, and it just because I don't have that personality, it's really hard for me to put myself there and understand. And I work at it every day to better understand her. But so it's the same thing with an abusive pattern. It's like, why would you put up with that? But it's the psychological impacts that it keeps them with what they know. They stick with what they know.
It does. And if you stick with what you know, sometimes that's your comfort zone. But moving out of your comfort zone, knowing that, okay, well, he pays the rent and this is, her way of living, it changes a lot of factors. People are like, you know what, I just wanted to scare him. Like I had real quick, I had a lady one time in the grocery store, and I walked in there in uniform on my lunch break, and she comes up, her child is, being a 5-year-old. And she says to him, she says, you know what? She said, if you don't stop, I want to have that officer lock you up. She's like, you better stop, or he's going to lock you up. And, I kind of smiled and waved and, kind of did what I could to kind of lighten the child's, memory of what a police officer should be. And afterwards, I kind of just whispered to her, I said, it's really not a good idea to use that as us as a threat. I said, we don't want children to be afraid of us. I understand what you were getting at, and want some type of figure of authority to bring to his attention, but to use us as a threat kind of stays in their mind, and as they grow up, we don't want them to say, oh, they're the bad guys, and,
exactly.
It's a shame that that's the way that a lot of police officers looked at in certain communities as the person you call when there's a problem that you need to use them as a threat,
Exactly. That same thing happened, Drew. One of our friends, they, my buddy, my husband's friend, he called, my husband was like, hey, can you come over? He said, my son's acting up and I just want you to scare him. And my husband was like, he schooled him. He's like, no, you don't do that. He's like, that's going to drive a wedge and potentially put him on the wrong path. And so people, and our friend meant well, but they just don't get it. You just don't do that. Like, they're supposed to be, it should be an alliance between law enforcement and the community, not a division. And
Right.
that's what that mentality creates, for sure. So
I
and that's
mean,
just
it
it.
is.
Well, but
I mean, if we had that type of, mindset, even when somebody is pulled over by a police officer, I mean, I've been pulled over more than once.
oh,
Not for doing anything crazy, but something as simple as like, I didn't use my turn signal
yeah,
or I was traveling, but for whatever it was worth, you give the same level of respect. And I never say I'm a police officer or was former anything. Never tried to use that because we get in a lot of trouble if we get pulled over, because we're supposed to know better. But it
yeah,
was an infraction that I didn't know my tail light was out or something. But
yeah,
if you give the same level of respect that you would to your parents, okay, is the
right,
best way to do this. If your mother comes up to you or father comes to you and says, "Listen, I need to talk to you," you're going to be quiet for a minute and listen, and you're not going to interrupt because they're your parents, and
right,
you're giving them respect, and that needs to be understood. And when everybody tries to sit there and argue, "Oh no, you're wrong. You shouldn't do this with me. I know my rights." Okay, well, know your rights and remain silent. Okay, listen to what I have to say. Okay, I'm not going to waste my time pulling you over because it's not valuable for me to do that. There's better
right,
things that I could be doing, I'm sure, and I'm pulling you over for a reason. So just hear me out. And
right,
if you want to argue it at court. This isn't the
exactly.
place. You know,
Yeah. Well,
and
that just
most of the
tells me
time we're going to let you go. We're not going to. Cause a problem with you. We're really just giving you an advisement. You may get a citation or not, and that'll be it. Instead of
right.
getting locked up and possibly worse.
It's just
So,
wild. I don't understand. I've been pulled over multiple times because I speed. I do have a lead foot, but and I'm not,
sometimes
you're better than I am because I did pull the husband's a police officer card once. But and did I get out of that ticket? I think I did. But anyways,
we,
I'm not the girl that cries and does all that. I'm like, I think about it when I get pulled over for a driving infraction. I'm like, man, come on. There's like murderers and rapists and robbers driving around. Like, go after them. But I'm never disrespectful. I'm more just kind of like jokey and
right,
it's just wild. Like you're saying, what you're saying earlier would make sense for common sense folks, but unfortunately, a lot of kids don't respect their parents, and they don't get talked to when they disrespect their parents, and so and the disrespect continues, and a lot of it's just learned. The disrespect towards police is cultivated in the home, so
right.
that's just it's
I mean, hopefully
unfortunate.
that ends at childhood. And when you become an adult, maybe my
Yeah,
hope is that you learn some point what respect means.
yeah,
And again, we're not demanding it. I'm earning it from you because I'm speaking to you casually, just like I'm speaking now. And we learned this a long time ago. We go to a domestic and two people are fighting and they're screaming, and that's all that happens. We walk in the door,
right,
and
right,
I
exactly.
walk up to the we separate. If there's two parties, I bring the one party outside, usually the victim, and I speak to her and say, "Listen," and she's screaming, and I talk to her the way I'm talking to you, but lower my voice. It forces her to hear. Okay, and then when it forces her to hear, she automatically starts speaking quieter, and
Nice.
you know it's a psychological thing, but it works. And
Get it. Yeah.
I've done it. I do that with my kids. I mean, they're not kids anymore. 23 and 18 years old now, but I've always done it that way, and it works. It's a communication thing, and communication is important.
Absolutely.
Visual. So
Well, I've loved talking to you and hearing your stories from the street, and then just talking about Manhattan because, man, when you haven't lived there, I'll tell you what, when every morning when I came out of the subway, my building was 350 Fifth Avenue. So, but I would come right up on Fifth Avenue, and I would get chills because you're walking down the street. Not only is New York just have just so rich in history, but you're walking down the street with CEOs and people that are a big deal. And but the cool thing with New York is people, it's unlike California. People aren't like, oh my God, there's so and so. Can I get an autograph? It's like no one cares who you are for the most part in New York City. You just get from point A to point B. So it's a really special place, but unfortunately, like we both agreed yesterday, it's dying, and we don't know what the future holds. It doesn't look bright right now, that's for sure. But well, so I appreciate you so much. Let's do this since we have just a little bit of time. I'm curious if anybody has questions for Drew or myself. If not, that is okay. I saw a lot of comments popping up during. Hello. You have a question for us? But, and I felt bad I wasn't able to address the comments that were popping up, but we can now if anyone has anything. You talk about going out of your comfort zone a bit, Drew, and I was reached out to by this guy in Canada who has a Canadian podcast with a lot of viewers. And he is on the opposing side of the mask debate. Then I'm an anti-masker, and he is strongly for it and completely backs what their government is doing. And he asked me to be a guest to have a respectful conversation. The thing is, it's out of my comfort zone, and I don't know if I'm going to do it. It makes me slightly uncomfortable. But as you said, we have to get out of our comfort zones a bit to make an impact. So what do you think? Yay or nay?
Definitely. I mean, coming out of your comfort zone is always important because it gives you the opportunity to look outside the box. And that's where we, are able to see how life, works on the outside. And, it gives you a different perspective. As far as like the masks are concerned, I mean, they obviously work to a degree, depending on what you're using them for.
Right.
Masks, surgeons use them in surgery, but afterwards they take them off. They don't wear them all day. It's not the same one.
Right.
And that more or less protects them from breathing into the open wounds and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
But, masks outside, they're just not needed. If you're standing in a crowd of people and you're worried about somebody that's coughing, by all means, put on whatever you need to. But we can't be hyper expose ourselves or actually underexpose ourselves to bacteria because we're going around right now, we're cleaning ourselves with everything. We're using antibacterial soap, hand sanitizer, all this stuff. By the time our body actually experiences a germ, it's not going to know what to do. Your immune system, the way it works is, you needs to know what the virus is, in order to fight it. And that was the whole idea behind immunization, is to give it a little bit of an experience and say, hey, this is what it looks like. And let your little police officers inside the body fight it, when it comes in. That's how to recognize it. So if we are constantly, sterilized, we're not going to be able to protect ourselves when we're exposed to something as simple as the common cold.
Oh my gosh.
That's just scary thought.
As you know, I wasn't on the show 2 weeks ago. I had somebody fill in for me because I got a nasty cold, and I usually do not get that sick at all. My entire family, we were all just wiped out, and it was just a cold. But it's the fact that my immune system turned into a little wimp, and so did the rest of us from lack of exposure. But the one person who had it the least was my husband, and that's because he's been around people. He doesn't work from home like I do. So he's the one who had the least symptoms, but that's because, it's because his immune system's been working this whole time, where the rest of us, we've just been isolated for the most part, not by our own doing, but just by the way society is right now. So
I don't get the flu shot. I don't have any type of, flu vaccinations for years. And I don't thank God I don't get sick. But I'm out there, I expose myself. You know how many people, perished, unfortunately, from this virus here in New York City alone. We were, again, ground zero for the most part. And, I go outside, I don't wear a mask. I've never had the virus. I've never been exposed to it. I've had every brain tickling, type of test that they can do. And they
No.
bodies. So, I mean,
Oh,
I'm healthy. I remain healthy, thank God. But I think part of it is because I don't conceal myself 24/7.
right.
Like, people are walking down the street, riding bikes, jogging, wearing masks, driving cars by themselves, wearing a
Yeah.
mask. A lot of it comes from
It's
fear, and I
beyond.
get that because it's the
Right.
unknown. But in reality, your body needs to breathe fresh air because that's the most healthiest thing for you. Not There's
Right.
not that
Exactly.
much fresh air in New York, but what's there, you should
Yeah.
be breathing.
All right,
And
Drew, I have to know. So are you saying yes, I should do that podcast?
I would, because it definitely gives both sides, and that's what it's about.
You might brutalize
It's
me. We'll see. Canadian, some weird Canadian facts. So I don't know about their government and all that stuff, but we'll
I
see.
mean,
All right, I'll do
their
it.
lockdown, from what I heard, is very,
Of
very
course.
interesting. Yeah,
Yeah, I
they're
heard it's
definitely.
he's for it. So yeah,
I
I
mean,
don't know. We'll see.
it's almost communist, what they're doing
Oh
to
yeah,
them,
bad.
to its own level. And if we were to have something similar, like if they called martial law, for example, everybody be
Yeah,
walking around with a passport for everything, paperwork, and if you didn't have it, you know, be like
yeah,
visiting Russia. You know,
yeah.
you get locked up for not
Absolutely.
having.
Yeah, it's crazy. All right. Well, I appreciate you coming on. We weren't able to have Robert on. We had some technical difficulties, and I relate to almost everything y'all talk about. Ah, awesome. Thank you, Steve. That's so good. I wonder what the exception is, the almost. Maybe it's the New York City part. But
Yeah,
yeah,
maybe.
awesome, awesome chatting with you. I really appreciate it. This is what it's all about. Thank you for being a great patriot, and thank you for your years in law enforcement, because I know it's beyond what most can even imagine on a day-to-day basis with the risk everyone's under. So anyways, I appreciate you so much, and I look forward to talking again. And thank you again for helping me with my baby Scarlett.
It's my pleasure.
Means a
And
lot.
thank you for everything your husband's doing as well, and continuing moving
Absolutely.
forward.
Thank you so much.
Thank
You
you.
have a great night.
Same to you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. All right, you guys, thank you so much for tuning in. That was really fun. And you know what? He was only prepped to go for 30 minutes because we did have 2 guests planned for today. One has a phone that's encrypted. He's fancy. And so we weren't able to get him through. We'll have to do that another time. But I appreciate Drew so much. He was able to go an hour with me, and that's fantastic. And thank you for tuning in. And don't forget that RAM TV, that we are partnered with My Pillow, and we have our own code, and that is RAM, as easy as that. And so you can do it. You can call your order in. If people still do that, go for it. But you can also go on the website, and then the discount code is RAM. And that really helps us with our legitimacy as a news source. And so we would drastically appreciate you to do that when you go to make your purchases. And like I always say, they may be woke, but we're awake. Have a great night.
Hi, I'm Charlie Sauer, president of the Market Institute Foundation and editor of U.S. Policy. Today I want to talk about antitrust populism because I think it's a lost chance to fight for entrepreneurship. In public policy, you can either be on the side of larger government or smaller government. And for decades, the Republicans have been the party of limited smaller government. It was a winning idea, while the Democrats' only solutions involved a combination of fairy tales and magic money. The Democrats seem to think that they can take money and power from producers, and that the money and power that they take will multiply throughout the economy. The Republicans argued that leaving the money and power with these producers would allow them to make even more money, produce even more, create even more jobs, and incentivize others to fight for that power and money. The Republicans were right.
innovation after innovation created a competitive marketplace that made the US economy the gold standard of the world. So other countries started following the outline. China created an intellectual property system which gave inventors ownership of their ideas. Now China has more annual filings than the US. Around the world, countries recognized that tax rates were driving businesses away and reducing employment. So they followed the Reagan Revolution and dropped their tax rates to even below the US. Now it is debatable if we are still the gold standard or just a part of the pack. We aren't the first in any of these categories anymore. One of President Biden's lead campaign promises was to increase the corporate tax rate, and our regulatory system is almost as complex as every other contender. So we're at a crossroads. Stay in the pack and just hope, or aggressively seek out solutions that make the US more competitive, more innovative, and return us to the gold standard of free economies. That sounds like the perfect time for Republicans to step in, take the reins, and drive the US into the lead. Unfortunately, that doesn't seem to be their plan. While many Republicans seem to have become wallflowers, afraid to stand out in front and make any statements of importance, the ones that are standing out in front are amazingly, unironically, pushing to expand government. Their belief is that by taking money and power from producers, that the money and power that they take will multiply throughout the economy. That sounds like the Democrat. In fact, Senator Josh Hawley recently produced a bill that would ban all acquisitions of companies with more than $100 billion market cap. His basis for this is that these companies have too much. He doesn't think that they should have that much, and he is going to use the warm embrace of government to help everything out. Basically relying on the phrase, "I'm from the government and I'm here to help." And if you aren't aware of where those words came from, that was Ronald Reagan's 9 most terrifying words in the English language. Look, there are several things wrong about Senator Hawley's solution to something that he considers a problem. Primarily, it won't work. Secondarily, to the extent that it works at all, it will slow potential competitors down even more, basically locking in the market where it is now, if not making Senator Hawley's initial problem even worse. To make matters more dire, if the Republicans intend to get into a bidding war for more regulation, that is something the Democrats will win. Bernie Sanders will always outbid even the most misled Republican idea to increase the size and reach of government. Unless, like in a real-world Scooby-Doo movie, Senator Hawley wants to admit that he is actually more of a socialist than Bernie Sanders, at some point he will hit a wall regarding how far he wants to go. But to get to that point, to get to that wall, he will have had to make every anti-business argument in the book, undercutting not only the economy, but the primary difference between Republicans and Democrats. If Senator Hawley's proposal is allowed to exist without pushback from the right, and judging by recent comments from Congressman Jim Jordan, who I've always liked because wrestlers stick together, Senator Hawley's pro-fairy tale, pro-magic money approach is going to have some support. Republicans don't have to like all big business. They don't have to like the people running them. They don't have to like the decisions that they make. But the answer isn't taking a bat to those businesses, because you end up hurting the next wave when you do that. The answer is to create an economy that is all about innovation. Create an economy where everyone is coming after Google, Facebook, Amazon, and Apple, making them fight for their positions at the top of the hill. The answer is less government, not more. That is the moral high ground in this debate. That is the intellectual high ground in this debate. And that is the policy that will restore the U.S. to its place as the gold standard for a productive economy. Again, I'm Charles Sauer, president of the Market Institute Foundation. If you like policy videos like this, please hit that subscribe button and come back for more. Thank you.
Hey, this is Josh Barnes with Point of View, where we discuss the crucial questions that you have about the critical issues of our day from a biblical worldview. We believe that to be right about issues, you're going to have to be biblical about issues. Check out Point of View every Monday from 4 to 6 p.m. and every Tuesday night from 8 to 8:30 right here on Right America Media Network at ramtv.live. Join us for the next episode of Point of View and let the Bible change your perspective.
Oscar viewership in the toilet, a cop prevents a deadly stabbing, and our special guest Dan Roberts to talk about the New York City firearms case that will be taken up by the Supreme Court. This is The Loaded Mic, and I'm Dan Wass.
You're listening to The Loaded Mic.
2020 brought us a huge increase in gun sales from 2018, with over 40% of those purchases being first-timers. The increase in gun sales of 2020 was almost 5 times that of the year 2000. January 2021, sales were up an additional 60%. Now, by April 2021, we're now up to 20 constitutional carry states, which means the citizens of those states enjoy gun ownership without a government-issued permission slip. On April 26, 2021, it was announced that the United States Supreme Court will hear a case that will decide whether or not New York State has the right to deny its citizens the right to keep and bear arms in New York City. The case is primarily based on 2 factors. Number 1, has New York State been violating the Second Amendment rights of its citizens by requiring them to demonstrate, quote, proper cause and or special need for self-protection? Has New York State been violating the Second Amendment right of its citizens by denying them the ability to self-defense outside the home? The Heller case held that the Second Amendment protects the individual right to possess and carry a weapon in case of confrontation. The term bear that was used in the text meant to wear or carry a firearm. To deny New York residents the ability to bear arms outside of the home would be to assume that confrontation would not occur outside the home. The fact is, the majority of violence, confrontation, and dangerous altercations, in fact, occur outside the home. The lower courts that have upheld the preferential permitting of firearms that we see in New York City is using this, quote, proper cause justification. This type of qualification assumes that gun ownership is measured by a metric of need. Now, as soon as you add or implement the requirement of proper cause for the bearing of firearms, you change the right to a need. This is what our founders warned us about. When the ability to keep and bear arms is decided by a judge based on whether or not that judge believes you need to bear, we've changed the Bill of Rights to the Bill of Needs. Should the idea that gun ownership be measured by a metric of need be allowed to continue, we can bet that there will always be an anti-gun bureaucrat or judge waiting at the gate to decide if the Second Amendment applies to you. All logic and understanding of the English language leads us to believe that the Supreme Court of the United States will rule in favor of gun owners on this one. However, we can expect a never-ending parade of anti-gun folks, pro-gun control lobbying groups, and left-wing Democrats kicking and screaming in opposition all the way to the final court hearing. The massive increase in gun sales, governors declaring their states constitutional carry states, and the fact that the Supreme Court took this New York case is testament to the fact that gun ownership is on the rise. This could very well be due to the violent left-wing riots and attacks by groups like BLM and Antifa, coupled with the defunding of police departments, but very well a result of real Americans finally seeing the intentions of Democrats in Congress and in the White House. Increased support for the Second Amendment is undeniable, and the gun grabbers are finding themselves on the wrong side of history. While groups like Moms Demand Action clutch their pearls at the thought of this court hearing, while pretending they'll win in court, the vast majority of Americans are turning against them and embracing the Second Amendment and the ability to protect and defend against violence that it affords us. We're going to talk about this more in depth with our guest, Dan Roberts. But first, I want to tell you about MyPillow. Now, by now, you've all heard me talk about MyPillow, and now Mike Lindell has done it again by introducing his new My Slippers. Mike has taken over 2 years to develop these, designed to wear indoor and outdoor all day long, made with MyPillow foam and impact gel to help prevent fatigue, also made with quality leather suede. For a limited time, Mike is offering 40% off his new slippers, his new My Slippers. The My Slippers are so comfortable that you'll want to get some for the whole family. So go to mypillow.com, click on the radio listeners square, and use the promo code RAM, like RAM. You can also call 800-867-0416. Don't forget to use the promo code RAM. Now, here to talk about all the news of the day with us is our good friend, John Chiara. How are you, John?
Kicking and screaming and clutching my pearls. How are you?
So a couple of things that I wanted to talk about. Now, we have Dan Roberts coming on the show in the second half hour to talk about the New York City thing. But there's a couple things that we need to discuss. Number one, did you watch the Oscars? Did you?
No.
No, nobody did. Apparently nobody did.
Less than
Viewership
ever.
numbers are way down, and I have some numbers here. I'm going to show you here in 1 second. Let me just pull this up. Okay. Now, the theme of this is go woke, go broke, because apparently Hollywood is, I don't know, they're getting killed. They're getting slammed. Nobody's watching anymore.
Everything. It's even TV shows. I mean, a lot of the stuff is just, there's all kinds of intertwined virtue signaling going on all over the place.
Well, they got to get their message in.
Gotta get
They're
the
putting it
message.
everywhere, and it's
Right.
taking the entertainment, it's taking the fun out of it, taking the entertainment out. So according to this, the Oscar ratings went from 43.7 million in 2014. Okay, so almost 44 million in 14. It dropped down to 23.6 million in 2020. So we're going on from 44 million to 23.6. Just take a guess from 23.6 million in 2020. Guess what it was in 2021, 1 year later, from 23.6 million in 2020. Guess how much it dropped?
10.
It dropped more than 10.
210.
Yeah, 9.8. Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I was just guessing.
Yeah, you nailed it.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, that's more than half.
Advertisers must love that, right?
Oh, God. Well, I mean, it's like, don't they see? I mean, do they care?
It would appear not. I mean, there's obviously a more important agenda than what makes sense to most people. So I don't know. I don't know what they hope to get. But going broke is what's going to happen. I mean, we've seen that with a bunch of companies that have voiced their opinion on stuff that we don't even really need to know about. It's so funny that for years the left was complaining about corporations and how they shouldn't be considered as anybody and should have no say in things. And now the corporations are, they're the ones out there leading the way. Oh, let's say this about them. Let's not do this. Let's not do business with people that have these political views and stuff. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's not business. It's not real business. It's just dumb.
No, it's not. It's anybody else in here watch the Oscars? Danny West Jr., Anthony, do you guys watch the Oscars?
No.
No, Anthony didn't watch. Why not?
He did.
Why, you don't watch that sort of stuff, Anthony?
No, they don't excite me at all.
Home
They
smoking
really
a
don't.
cigar in his box or
He doesn't
shorts.
smoke
I know how it
cigars.
works.
Nobody likes cigars.
You're right.
I love them.
I can tell by the look on your face when you smoke it. Should I do my imitation of Dan smoking a cigar?
rather you
I've
didn't.
done it before. I won't do it again. It's not good.
Maybe.
It looks like my little brother when he was like a year old.
Oh, that's nice. That's
Straining.
Where does this? I don't get it.
It's the same look.
No, it's not. I don't think I smoke a cigar and look like that. I don't know. Anyway, I like my Rocky Patels. I'm into Rocky Patels right now. So sue me. Gurkhas are good.
You're all caught up in it. I get
Well.
it. That's all good.
Anyway, how do we get Oscars? So I don't get it, man. I just don't understand how these leftists in Hollywood can do this to themselves. They're just completely destroying their industry by going woke.
Well, there must be enough critical mass within the industry so there's enough people patting each other on the back that they feel like it's the right thing to do, right? I mean, we can't know what they think, but they must think they're doing the right thing or they wouldn't be doing it. But
But the right thing for what? The right thing for their industry or the right thing for their political party.
And they're mixed up, obviously, right? And I don't know why they are mixed up.
Anybody who's invested in any kind of industry, whether you're a carpenter or a CEO of a major corporation or an actor, I would think that you want to protect your craft. You want to protect your business from financial loss
By not alienating half the population, right? That would make sense.
Yeah, I mean that they're gonna find really quick that they need conservatives, and they keep making these stupid woke. Every movie I see, I can't watch movies anymore.
No, you're not alone in saying
because there's always this stupid left-wing messages. You've got people thrown in. Danny Wass Jr. was just telling me about some superhero movie, and maybe he'll comment on this, but some superhero movie that they switched all the characters to female characters just for the sake of putting females in there. And he said that the story, Danny, what was it? Can you come on camera for a minute? What was that all about?
Was it a show or was it?
Okay, so it was Infinity War.
Yeah.
Okay, so in Infinity War, it was like the big Avengers movies, you know?
Yeah.
Infinity War, they had like a girl power scene that was like good. And like it fit the movie and everything. And then they had a generic, like every female character in the universe come on screen in the next movie. And it was because what they did is they paused the movie just to have this girl power moment, and it didn't make any sense, and it was like really stupid.
Oh, so they paused the movie just to put in this. Was it like almost like an advertisement for another movie?
No, it was just an advertisement for just women.
What was the purpose of it?
There's no purpose. So
that's so stupid.
Well, I told you when I was watching
that is
Supergirl on TV. They had a trans woman superhero. I never found out what it was about, but her whole agenda was, I'm here to stand up for my community. And I'm like, you're fighting bad guys. Are the bad guys coming after your community? I don't understand. Like it was the same kind of thing. It was just thrown in to make a statement about something, and I'm like, that doesn't help the story. Yeah. I'm confused now watching this. Like, why does that matter? You know? I grew up on Superman. You know what I mean? So it's like I watch these things, and I'm just like, I don't understand where they're going with it. Some kind of message. Maybe it's one of those secret dog whistle kind of things that they.
Well, they're putting in these messages to contribute to the alteration of society that no one wants. We don't want this woke cancel culture nonsense that they're trying to sell. But every time you turn around, these liberal Hollywood movie makers are putting in all these messages, and I can't watch this stuff anymore. And it's not only because I'm a conservative, it's because
it's not entertaining.
It's because
it's not necessary for the story. I mean, the movies are supposed to be stories. When you start putting stuff in to signal stuff. Like, I think a lot of it is that because I think a lot of what's happening with the left today is that they believe a lot of things about imaginary people. Like all the racists, all the white supremacists, all these xenophobic people that hate Mexicans and stuff. And again, you know how it is when I ask people, where are these people?
Yeah.
They never have an answer. So if you plop that premise down into Hollywood and they're thinking there's all these people out there that we have to signal to in order to make them know that we're on the right side of history or whatever they're going to be on the right side of. And it's just not entertaining.
They're on the wrong side of history. They're actually on the wrong side of everything. And don't they understand that what they're doing is alienating people? And people like me are just like, screw it.
I think they get so much positive feedback from within their own bubble that they really don't understand that. Like if you're really watching CNN and stuff, you don't know that there's other people that are going, well, that's ridiculous, and I don't feel that way. Nobody I know thinks that way.
Right.
But these people are, because they've been programmed to the point, though, where all you need to do is give them something, right, and they're off and running. I mean, friends that I have on social media, you just give them a tidbit, and they're over the cliff.
Yeah, like they have to keep pursuing their position. They have to keep promoting their position for some reason. It's like, just chill out. Write a movie without any of this nonsense, social nonsense and political.
Well, that shows you how weak the ideas are, though, when you have to keep pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing like that. If it's a good idea, people will pick up on it.
Well, and it's the same with all the COVID propaganda. I mean, all you see on TV, and I know Anthony and I were talking about this before, all you see on TV and even radio is get the vaccine, get the vaccine. Slow Joe was even saying, you know, I'm sorry, I should say former Vice President Joe Biden was saying, you know, just get the vaccine, almost like scolding you for not getting it. Like, what the hell? Don't they understand that people don't respond to that? I mean, real Americans don't respond to that. Right. You might have those sheepish leftists who will just conform for the sake of being obedient. Right. And I think that maybe that's because they understand that strategy of controlling a certain portion, a small section of society, because they are obedient and they will conform. Right. They want to be, they're proud of being, well,
the signaling is reinforced. That's what we said.
But they think that they're going to use those same tactics on people who can actually think for themselves. Conservative.
Get the vaccine. Give me your gun. Come on.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Well, if Joe Biden says it, I'll just hand over.
Once you have the vaccine, you don't need a gun anymore. You're all good.
Yeah, we'll protect. Government will protect you. But I see all the propaganda for COVID, and it tells me that because the propaganda is getting so thick and the marketing campaigns are getting so thick. See, the way this level of marketing is really intense right now because you see it everywhere. Typically, that type of marketing is done when you're trying to create product awareness. Like a new product comes out on the scene, new company comes out on the scene, they blast and they flood the media with this type of marketing because nobody knows about it.
That's how you create household names, right?
Exactly.
Now we have household signaling.
That's that's why I'm loving it. I say I'm loving it. You know exactly. We're talking about McDonald's. What are some other? Just do it, right? Nike. These are marketing slogans. These are things that are huge and everybody knows what they are. But anyway, the point is they flood the media with this type of marketing when they're trying to create product awareness. But everybody on planet Earth is aware of the vaccine, right? This is not to create product awareness. They're using the product awareness strategy, marketing strategy, to just blatantly come out and try to convince you and make you make you take it.
Well, they want to make you think that you're the right kind of person. Like Joy Reid said she was out jogging after she's been vaccinated, and she's out jogging wearing a mask by herself after she's been vaccinated.
What an idiot.
Like, what is that?
that you know what that is? That's an idiot. Joy Reid isn't. Anthony, what do you think about Joy Reid? What do you think about Joy Reid?
Poor Joy.
Oh.
What do you think about Joy Behar?
Oh, yeah.
I heard her say something the other day that just like I couldn't even believe. Oh, she was talking about Caitlyn Jenner running for governor.
Just shoot the gun in the air.
She was talking about Caitlyn Jenner running for governor, and she kept saying he like 3-4 times. Yeah. And then she apologized. She goes, I guess I messed my pronouns up. She goes, so I said it wrong. It just came out. Whatever.
Yeah, like it's supposed to be okay for her.
She said she didn't get enough sleep the night before.
Get enough sleep. I'm operating on 4 hours of sleep. Whatever.
She's a Democrat. Whatever. Doesn't matter. The rules don't apply.
It's so double standard. It's just
I don't know how that show is still on TV.
I
watched it for 2 minutes and I wanted to shoot the TV.
They're lunatics that watch it. They love it.
Lunatics.
I don't know how. I couldn't get through 30 seconds of it.
Well, same with CNN. I'll watch like 5 minutes of it, and I see all the nonsense.
You're braver than I am.
All the COVID stuff, the propaganda. Oh my God, numbers are up here. And all this crazy stuff. And I'm going, I can't, I just don't buy it anymore. I can't. It's just ridiculous. But there are people out there going, oh my God, I need another mask. It's so stupid that people can fall for it. But now everyone's been conditioned. Well, at least those people, the vaxxers and the COVID alarmists, they are at this point conditioned, because you talk about what it takes to create a habit, right? It's like 66 days, I think it is. Well,
It's predictable.
right. So you make someone, or you do something for 66 days in a row, according to,
It's a persistency.
yeah, and you develop a habit. So that the habitual part of this has already been done with the masks and all this nonsense. So that's been done. People now get out of their car, mask goes on, go into the store, mask comes off. It's habit now. I don't do it, but whatever.
We all know that.
I can't do it. I can't bring myself to do it. It just doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't help.
I get it.
There are states, Florida, Texas, other states that are wide open.
And their numbers are low.
Numbers are low. Come on. How can you be so ignorant of that stuff and actually believe that what you're doing is still, this masking and social distancing is still that it's helping?
Like so much stuff. How come you can't understand why somebody might want to have a gun to protect themselves, right?
Yeah.
How do you now understand that? And then today, another person I've been conversing with on social media was like, okay, our forefathers had a musket that fired 1 or 2 shots a minute if you were lucky. And this is an AR-15. Blah, 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 blah. I'm like, okay. Do you drive a car? Do you have a phone?
Yeah.
Do you not want all that stuff either?
Yeah. Do you want to
Because
go back
that's
to
how
horse and
things
buggy?
work, right?
Yeah. You can go back to horse and buggy if you want. But those comments and those arguments, we shouldn't even have those arguments. There's a thing called the Second Amendment, period. It's carved in stone. The Second Amendment is carved in stone. It means what it says. Shall not be infringed, period. I don't care if they had muskets back then. I don't care what they had.
Well, the whole idea was to be armed appropriately to defend yourself against the people that might be attacking you, right?
Right.
Back then, that's what there was. If there was muskets on both sides, then
Well, this goes to the fact that Democrats and left wingers want people to be submissive to government. There's no other way to.
no, I agree.
They want American citizens to be submissive because that's the mentality that they have. They're submissive, they're obedient, and they hate the fact that we're not.
I understand. So before I forget, what happened with the state sovereignty law thing in Arkansas yesterday?
That's pretty complicated, and I don't want to comment too much on it.
Okay,
but
I just saw Jan a couple times
Yeah.
talking about it, and I wasn't sure. Did something pass or not pass that we hoped would?
I hope I get this right. I hope I get this right because my Arkansas friends will be mad at me if I don't. But I think it was passed. It passed the House and the Senate, and then the governor vetoed it.
Okay.
And then the people, or then they had enough votes to override the veto, but before that was done, they postponed it. So now it's postponed. Now it's hanging
That's
out
what
there
I
in
heard
midair,
last.
something like that. And I hope my Arkansas friends will correct me if I'm wrong.
This
But
is the governor that they're trying to replace, right?
this is Asa Hutchins. He's not a Republican. He's technically a Republican, but he governs like a Democrat.
Yeah, I don't know a lot about the history, but I've seen a lot of those videos the last couple of days, so I was wondering what the whole state
And
of that
you know,
is.
Jan Morgan, our good friend, ran for governor to take his seat, and he wouldn't even debate her. He wouldn't dare debate her because she would have destroyed him. But she would have absolutely annihilated him in a
Well, that's
debate.
something to keep an eye on, though. I'd be interested in what happens because that's another law that if that goes through, that sets a precedent, right?
Yeah, as far as I know, I wish I had more data on it. I don't want.
We'll talk about it next week. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, let's. And you know what? Maybe we'll get somebody in.
Jan.
Maybe we'll get Jan in. Talk about that. That'd be fantastic. So, but anyway, one other thing I wanted to hit before break. Danny, how much time we got? Okay, so let's hit this. We got cop saves a black girl's life from a stabbing, but the left blames the cop for killing the attacker. Okay? It looks like the left would rather see a black girl die by stabbing than praise a cop. This is how far we've gone. So this cop the girl. Everybody's seen the video.
Well, there's
Okay.
not
Do
much
we
to-
have to even play the video? I don't even know if we have to.
It's like what, 13, 22 seconds? Something.
Do you want to play? Okay, we'll put the video. Let's watch the video right here. She's clearly going after her with a knife. The knife is in
Clear view, right?
clear view.
Right there.
The cop takes her out with precision.
Right.
Never seen anything. I mean, how did he not
Shoot her in the leg.
Oh, well, that's another thing. Didn't Joy Behar want to shoot in the leg or something like that?
A lot of people would.
So
Shoot the knife out of
but
her
he
hand.
didn't hit anyone else.
Right.
There were no stray bullets. He took her out while she's in mid swing with the knife. I mean, that is precision. That's perfect.
Absolutely.
He saved the girl's life, and he took out the killer. Now, the left is losing their ever-loving mind over this because
She was a nice girl.
she was a nice girl. Yeah, a nice girl stabbing another human being. That's
get
nice.
it. I've never had somebody come at me with a knife, and if I did, I weren't thinking they were a nice person while they were doing it. That's for sure.
She's an honor student.
She was like, okay.
She's on the dean's list.
Yeah. But they're losing it because it was a cop.
Right. White cop.
White cop, yeah. Yeah, somehow he was racist. He saved the girl's life. What the hell's wrong with these
I don't
people?
know what's racist about a knife going towards somebody's throat. How is that racist? They weren't thinking it was racist when they were performing that act, right? So,
Yeah. Well, and then some people have come out and said, well, that's common in that community.
right. Dan Bongino was saying, yeah, everybody's been in a knife fight, right? Oh, Dave Rubin was saying, I haven't been in lots of knife fights.
Oh, yeah, all the time, every day.
Just let them play out. It's fine.
Like God sort them out later.
Unbelievable.
It's just such a basic disregard for normal behavior, though. You know, it's like you look at stuff like that, and you try to put yourself in their position, and like, have they been getting away with that their whole lives? Is that why they're still acting like that? Because there must have been a lack of discipline or awareness somewhere in their previous life to get them to the point where, hey, I'm going to party with a bunch of people. I'm going to stab my girlfriend.
And you know what? You and I have had this conversation before. You look at it as a lack of something. A lack of
Something.
and I agree with you. That's fine. I totally agree.
Guidance,
It's a lack of guidance, a lack of respect, a lack of whatever it is. I also look at it as something that was implemented into their thought process. In other words, it's okay. Let's implement this. It's okay to kill someone if they disagree with you or if they wrong you in some way. It's not only a lack of respect for human life, it's also the implementation of it's okay to kill.
It's programming. So the hard part is how do you overcome something like that? If there's a whole
I know exactly
if
what
there's
this
a whole
is.
strata of people out there that are actually buying into that, how do you
You
fix
need
that?
responsible parenting, and you
Right.
need, and this is going to take generations to fix. If we start now, I don't see any evidence that we're going to start. Because as long as Democrats keep the welfare system in place, fathers are going to be out of the homes, kids aren't going to be raised right, and God is going to be out of the conversation.
No school choice. Go to the same bad schools over and over again. with the
Over
same
and over,
people.
learning the same stuff.
Yep.
Gangs, they're gonna gravitate toward gangs. It's all the same crap, and it's all to keep people in a dependency. It's all to keep people in a welfare state.
Well, that's the result, and it works really well, obviously, because
So this is what we
once
deal
you
with.
get past the first generation, then everybody just buys into that as normal, and that's how we go.
So now we're dealing with people who shouldn't be in society, right?
Yep.
I mean,
Need an island.
what was Anthony think? What do we do? What do we do with this?
You're right. It's a parenting issue.
Yeah.
When you don't have a father figure, they're going to gravitate to the gangs because the gangs treat them
Right.
like family, and they'll do anything for them. So they get that mentality as, okay, this gang's going to take care of me. So I'll do whatever they tell me to do. If that's murder, steal, whatever it is. But that's usually where they gravitate to.
Yeah, you grew up in Albany,
yeah.
New York.
Mm-hmm.
Rough side of town, right?
Yep.
The hood.
Yep.
I know exactly.
You know the mentality.
I know the mentality. I know how it works.
So it's sad, right? Obviously, we all think that it's not good, but
No, of course not.
the thing of it is, if
Well, it
you're
pisses me off when I see this stuff, but then you have to look at what caused it, and then you do. You're right. You feel
and
kind
how
of
do
sad
you
over
stop
it.
it? What do you do? I mean, I feel bad that some person's philosophy on life is like, I can go out and do all this stuff, and I've been told since I was born that this is the way things work. How do you talk people out of that?
What has to go through your head to think you're going to stab another person to death? I mean,
we need people like LeBron James and stuff coming out.
He's
got to
get out there and
come on.
He's got
straighten your
to
shit out.
Instead of you,
John swearing again. Mark that one.
Instead of LeBron using his platform for something good, he's using it as negative.
Yeah,
The same signaling stuff,
Talking about
right?
something he knows nothing about.
yeah. He's a clown act.
That's too bad.
He is.
It's too bad. And then you get people out there that are really, highly intelligent, well-respected black people, men and women in different fields. And if they say anything, they're sellouts.
Oh yeah, yeah. They're shunned
Yeah.
and they're.
Here's how you do it to be, let's try this. This works better than what you're doing. Oh, you're a sellout.
I look at people like Morgan Freeman and stuff. There's some
Thomas Sowell, Glenn Lowry, all these people that are just like, this stuff doesn't work. We've seen for generations that it doesn't work, produces bad results, and nobody's talking about that because you're not allowed to. Because if you talk about it, you're on the wrong side of everything, and
Well, because a certain part of our government has created this victim mentality and this dependency on government issued funding and all this stuff, and people get used to that. Now you got people on welfare that are 3-4 generations deep. How do you get out of that if you come from a family that's been cultivated in the welfare system? How do you, with no father? I don't know. The whole thing is just such a mess, but it's so obvious of what the problem is. I wish lower income people who are in these situations, living in the ghetto, living on food stamps, and accepting that as their lifestyle, I wish they would try to see it from a different
they
perspective.
need somebody to come in and show them a different perspective. That's why role models are so important. Because, like we talked about before, if you grew up poor, you're not talking yourself out of that by yourself. Something's got to come from the outside.
This is a whole conversation we could have for another hour, but we don't have time. So anyway, right after the break, though, Dan Roberts is coming on. We're going to talk to him about the New York City Supreme Court case. Okay, see you in a bit.
I'm Danny Watts Jr., producer of The Loaded Mic. I just wanted to let you know that you can find us at Simul TV, Right America Media, YouTube, and Rumble. You can also find the podcast at Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Play. Or you can go to loadedmic.com. Remember to like, share, subscribe, and leave a review.
The Second Amendment is a priority at the Loaded Mic. If we don't defend the right to keep and bear arms, there are people who are happy to violate it. The strategies and tactics of the anti-gun crowd and politicians are sinister, and we need to understand those tactics. I wrote the Good Gun, Bad Guy book series as the rule book to their evil game, so we can understand their strategies and motives to defeat them. Understand the mindset of the anti-gunner in Book 1. Learn the media strategies behind the gun grab in Book 2. And understand the politics behind their mission in Book 3. Go to goodgunbadguy.com.
Okay. All right. We're back. And obviously we have headphones on because we have Dan Roberts on the line. Dan Roberts is a Second Amendment advocate, and this guy is doing he's doing all sorts of stuff. And Dan can talk to us about the competitive shooting course that he's got in schools, and he can talk about a lot of stuff. We have a somewhat of a limited amount of time here, so I wanted to talk with Dan about the Supreme Court case that I talked about in the monologue.
Right.
Dan, welcome. How are you?
Yeah, it's always a pleasure to come on and talk with you guys.
Well, we appreciate you coming on because I know that you're schooled up on this Supreme Court case, and I'm in New York State, and I understand the way New York City is a may issue. In other words, they may issue your Second Amendment rights depending on whether or not the judge feels you're worthy. And this is the stuff that just pisses me off. But so anyway, now we have a Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has decided to take up this case from the New York State Rifle and Pistol Association. Can you give us, I talked a little bit about this earlier, but can you give us your take on what this case is all about and some of the details? What is this case? What does it mean to us as gun owners?
So what it basically boils down to is New York City, Rhode Island, New Jersey is notorious, Hawaii, California, and I think one or two others, only like 5 or 6 states. Basically, they all have what's known as a justifiable need clause, which is completely open-ended, and it basically means that you cannot get a permit to carry a firearm outside the home for self-defense for any reason unless a judge decides that he likes you or you contribute a right amount of donations to the right political party. I mean, there's been challenges to the justifiable need clause in New Jersey with a pretty famous case, a guy that serviced ATM machines and, would walk around with $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 in cash. And that's one of the things that's outlined in the New Jersey statute. And they still denied him. And the judge said he should hire licensed armed guards to escort him on his rounds instead.
Oh, my God.
So the Supreme Court announced at the beginning of the week that they had accepted certiorari on this New York State Rifle and Pistol Association case about justifiable need or may issue carry permits. And it is really the first time since Heller and McDonald that they've agreed to hear a major two-way question. We've all been frustrated for the last several years where they have routinely turned down case after case after case after case to the point where even Justice Thomas, openly called them out a year or two ago in his dissent, saying that the Second Amendment is being treated as a second-class right. And a lot of us kind of knew that it was going to depend on having the makeup of the court change to a 6-3 conservative majority, which was why having Trump's appointment get through was so important.
Yeah.
Amy Coney Barrett is on record as being a staunch 2A supporter. So is Kavanaugh. Justice Kavanaugh, it makes his position very clear in previous decisions he's authored. And the issue, I think, that's kind of an open secret, but nobody's ever been really to confirm it, is that Roberts, no relation, thank God, Chief Justice Roberts was also always kind of this wild card where he was supposedly, conservative or pro-2A, and yet never seemed willing to cast the deciding vote when it was a 5-4 majority or an even split court to take up one of these cases. So we all kind of, those of us that watch this stuff very closely, kind of had an idea that once it was a 6-3 majority with Kavanaugh and Coney Barrett and that, that it was eventually going to happen, and now it finally has.
Yeah, and that's fantastic. And you know what? That's the thing that's sending the left wingers, the gun grabbers. They're getting unhinged over this case because they know what this could mean. But I wanted to go back to a couple things. In the text, New York requires an applicant to demonstrate, quote, proper cause, and they must demonstrate a special need for self-protection. Now, self-protection, it also talks about defending yourself against confrontation. And this was interesting. I read through a lot of this text. Heller held that the Second Amendment protects the individual right to possess and carry a weapon in case of confrontation. Well, to deny the carry of guns outside the home would be to deny and assume that confrontation would not occur outside the home. Am I right?
I agree. And if you look at Ginsburg's dissent in Heller, she openly admitted that to bear meant to carry outside the home.
So how do they get away with this thing for so long? That's the thing that drives me crazy. But
because the different circuits have twisted and completely, just done mental gymnastics to try to avoid what we all know the right answer is.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the Supreme Court, we didn't have enough people on the Supreme Court that were willing to take up that fight. So they just let the lower courts get away with thumbing their noses at Heller and McDonald for the last decade.
John, did you have a question for Dan? I saw you kind of nodding over there.
Oh, no, I'm just agreeing. I mean, obviously, to be prepared for confrontation, you don't know when the confrontation is going to come. So how can you not carry and be prepared? It doesn't make any sense.
We shouldn't even be having this argument to begin with. I say this all the time. The Second Amendment is carved in stone. It says shall not be infringed. But New York City especially has been infringing on it. And so Dan, here's a question. As we look at this, let's say we win this. Let's say New York City now would be forced to allow gun owners the ability to exercise their Second Amendment. What happens from there with respect to other states, with respect to state-to-state reciprocity, with respect to constitutional carry? How do you foresee this thing playing out?
Well, I don't think it's going to necessarily have an impact on, quote, constitutional carry per se. That seems to be going pretty much our way already. I think it's 20 states.
20 states.
Four since the new year, so one a month have done it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I think it will certainly eliminate the justifiable need clause or an analog to that might be worded differently, which again would take it out of the hands of anti-gun states like California, Hawaii, Rhode Island, New Jersey, etc. I don't know. I know I said national reciprocity when you and I spoke the other day about coming on, and it was probably a little bit of a misnomer on my part. I was using that as a descriptor for the effect, not necessarily exactly what would be enacted. In other words,
I understand. Yep.
If they eliminate the shall issue or justifiable need clause, at that point, logic would dictate that it would also mean, and I guess they could get around it by saying you have to be a resident of the state, but I would argue that it would mean that if you have a valid carry permit in your home state, it should be recognized in every other state.
Yeah.
Now, whether that happens because it's just the way the ruling goes, or it's this ruling, a positive ruling in our favor is step one, and then we have to go argue for national reciprocity based on that decision. That's up in the air. It could go that way too.
Well, if it does go our way in New York, wouldn't that mean that would set precedents for all states to have to do away with their May issue?
I believe that would be the case, yes.
Because otherwise, what I think is you'd see lawsuits in every state that has a May issue. The lawsuits would be coming down like crazy.
But what they may wind up doing is, as I said, they may structure it in such a way, and they're going to be extremely pissed off that they got their hands smacked over this. As you said, they're already flipping out on Vox and a lot of other leftist anti-gun social media channels. I suspect that they're going to be so upset about this that the states remaining that I already named, I think would probably try to do something like structure it so that, okay, fine, we'll give in. You have to be shall issue, but you can only get one if you're a resident of the state.
Yeah. I see.
So
yes.
That would still mean that even though I have a South Carolina resident permit, I have a New Hampshire non-resident permit, and non-resident permits from 2 other states, and I've been background checked more times than Andrew McCabe at the FBI, it would still mean that when I go back to New Jersey to visit my folks at Christmas, my permit would not be valid in that state.
Well, now I don't know if you remember, there was another case that came up about taking any firearms outside the home and Governor Cuomo. I don't know if this was an executive order. I can't remember. He said you can only go to one of the approved firing ranges or hunting or something. Okay, so you're aware of that one. Well,
yeah, that was the one that was last year, and when it looked like, and see, this is what they do all the time. When it looked like it was going to go to the Supreme Court, they really quickly changed the law, so it would make the possible Supreme Court case be a moot case.
Yeah,
because they didn't want that. They didn't want that precedent set.
Right, exactly. So my question to you is: do you think they'll do the same thing with this? Will they change?
I think, because in the other one, the Supreme Court hadn't agreed to take the case yet. I don't think. I could be wrong on that detail.
Okay.
If I'm wrong, then yeah, I guess it's theoretically it's possible. If I'm correct, then, and my theory is that once the Supreme Court has agreed to accept it, they can't like all of a sudden call a last minute do-over and say, okay, never mind, we'll change it.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, I am certainly not an expert on the minutia of Supreme Court processes.
Because they don't want that loss on their books, and that's exactly what they're going to get. So,
and that's what happened in D.C. with when D.C. didn't appeal Heller because the governors of the legislatures in New Jersey and New York and California, the attorney generals, all those lackeys were all calling them saying, don't appeal this because if this goes against you, it's going to undermine our laws. And that's the thing people have to realize. This is all a big game to these jerks.
Yeah.
They don't care about your rights. The oath that they take when they enter office is good for as long as their breath is in the air, and then it's meaningless.
Yeah.
This is all a big game, and they all get together and they all scheme and plot how they can, help out their fellow anti-gun legislators and governors to avoid having to comply with what is obvious on its face.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I couldn't agree with you more. I just want to make a note and get your thoughts on this. The gun sales have increased. My point to this, I'm going to give some data here, and correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, or if you have different data.
Yeah.
Gun sales increased. At least background checks. Total NICS background checks in 2020 was almost 40 million, 39.6, 39.7. 40% were first timers. In other words, people who've never owned a gun before. And there was a 40% increase from 2019. And there was over 450% increase since 2000. So it tells us that gun ownership is definitely on the rise. You've got 20 states now that are constitutional carry. You've got this case hitting the Supreme Court. I mean, with everything, considering everything that we've been dealing with the past year or two, we're in pretty good shape now. It's starting to look a little bit better for us, I would think, regardless of Biden's executive order threats and stuff like that. But it would look like the people are leaning more toward wanting to be gun owners and respecting the Second Amendment. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? Where's the trend going at this point?
I want to take solace from the increased sales numbers. However, you and I both know that even very committed, long time, 10, 20, 30-year gun owners, it is very difficult to get them to be politically active.
Well, that's true. Yes.
So I can't just get all excited and say, oh, we've got, 5 million new gun owners. That's it. Gun control is dead. It's never going to come back. They'll never vote for it again. Because I don't have any faith that all of these new gun owners are really willing to do the political activism that is required to maintain the status quo, let alone make any advances.
They don't, actually. I talked to some of the old timers, and they say, oh, geez, I don't want to, I'm not going to get involved in that. I just want to go hunting. I just want to do this. So they won't even speak out. And they just, a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot will just kind of go with the flow and whatever happens, happens. And that's not okay. That's why guys like us have to be out there talking about this stuff and encouraging other people to get involved, because we really do need to be involved. So I totally get your point. I'd like to look at this optimistically, but I understand your perspective, wanting to be a little skeptical. I get it. I totally get it.
Yeah.
So anyway, so I guess to summarize, with the New York State thing coming up, that's going to happen in the fall, correct?
Yes, I'll hear the case in the fall, and then a decision will be forthcoming sometime in the month after that fall session.
Okay, and I'm sure you're going to be keeping up on it. So will you keep us posted? I'm going to be
absolutely, Mike. Certainly.
Okay. Excellent. And before we hang up with you here, Dan, tell us where people can find you. I know you're doing some stuff with your daughter is a competitive shooter. Tell us, give us the call to action. Tell us what you want people to know.
You've got to get politically involved. It's not always fun. It's often very tedious and incredibly frustrating. But you've got to do it if you want to try to stop these leftists, because they have made it quite clear that they have every intention of trying to take every gun that they can.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. Get involved. Call your senators. Do whatever you have to do. And I would also encourage people to get involved with their state gun rights organization, and also get involved with one or two national gun rights organizations, because those are the guys that are going to court. Those are the guys that are fighting.
Yeah. And you've got to be willing to make time to sacrifice that paid day off to go to a state legislature and testify.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm a working guy. I'm at work, my regular job right now. I'm a single parent with 2 kids. I get it. Nobody wants to give up a day they can go fishing or go play golf or go to the range and go sit in an office building and testify before a bunch of legislators that really don't have any respect for them at all.
Yeah.
But you have to be willing to do that.
You have to.
Because they will take everything that we let them.
Yep. Dan Roberts, thanks so much, pal. And I want to get with you off the air, and we'll talk about that other stuff we were discussing earlier. So thanks so much.
Absolutely.
All right, buddy. Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
What a great guy, Dan Roberts. And he's and he is someone who, I mean, he keeps up on this stuff like crazy. I mean, we all do, but I mean, he called me when this was announced, and he goes, "Did you hear?
Oh, that's the guy that go. Okay,
yeah. So I'm like, so I said, okay, school me up, and I went and I got some more data on it, and so we got. But this could really be something incredible. I don't know if all gun owners realize this. This could be another Heller. This could be another McDonald. This could be another case that solidifies our Second Amendment and says, wait a minute, all these restrictions and all this nonsense you've been doing has been violating our Second Amendment rights. And this could be the case that does it.
So I wasn't aware that there's a lot of longtime gun owners that are not politically active at all. They don't see the threat. I assume, right?
Well,
it doesn't hit them at home.
I don't know. I use the term the old timers. There's some guys out there who just have maybe lost the fight, And I can understand. I mean, a lot of people are getting old and they don't want to deal with it. They don't want to go down to their state house and tell their legislators, how they feel. They just don't want to get involved. People get older. They start to decide, I'll just let it.
Oh, I understand.
So,
you get tired.
So it's the younger guys who got to get out there and fight.
So 40 million new background checks, you said?
Total NICS background checks in 2020 was 40 million. Okay, so that's a 40% increase from 2019. Okay, but when you go back to 2000, it's a 450% increase.
So again, now see, I would love to see long-term numbers on tracking of this. If a percentage of those people end up getting their permits, right, and getting a gun, do any of those people go out and shoot other people? Because I think the number's like close to zero, right?
Yeah. Well, we already know that the over 90%, 90 or 95% of criminals surveyed in jail, this is a DOJ study, admitted that the guns that they used were illegally acquired.
Right.
So we already know that.
So they come from where? Other places out of the country?
They come from straw purchases. They come from theft. They come from, like a lot of times you'll see gun stores getting broken into, and
right. They
stuff
steal
like that.
guns.
They steal guns. So so a lot of different ways that bad guys will get guns and avoid the background check system. And then you got the background check system, and I'll give you the numbers again. We talked about this before. Right. 112,000 denials in 2017, and 99+% of those were false positives.
Right.
So here we have a background check system. I use the NICS system just to get a measurement or a metric on how many people are looking to buy. Because just because they did a NICS background check doesn't mean they actually purchased a gun. It's just.
So how does that get initiated? When does that background check get started?
At the gun shop.
So if you walk in,
I want that gun. Okay.
First
give
step.
me your license. Boom. We'll do the background check. Right.
Okay.
But so
they do that before they do anything else.
Yeah.
They don't start any kind of sale or anything until that's all taken care of, I assume, right? That's figured out anyway.
It's at the same time you're deciding. Yeah. So it's at the same time. But so the 112,000 denials in 2017, 99% of those were false positives. In other words, people were denied and they shouldn't have been.
And we don't know what the consequences of that might have been, right? Depending on why they wanted a gun, what their situation was, who they needed to protect themselves against, all that kind of stuff is just in the wind, right?
Right. Nobody knows, nobody cares. Nobody should know.
Right.
Like, this is nobody's business why you or I would want to go get a gun. Nobody's business. Second Amendment right. We shouldn't even have to do a background check. When the Bill of Rights, back in 1791, when the Second Amendment was ratified, they didn't have background checks. There was no such thing as there were no serial numbers. Maybe a manufacturer, if somebody's making guns, they might put serial numbers on just so they know which model it was or how many they made or whatever. But they certainly weren't registered with the government, because the idea of the Second Amendment was that the people should have firearms equivalent to what the government had at the time to keep the power in the hands of the people. But anyway, so 112,000 denials and 99% false positives. So the NICS background check doesn't work. It just doesn't work. So the only thing I see it good for is to see how many people are looking to purchase. Right. So we kind of use that to measure gun sales.
Gotcha.
That way we have kind of an idea. But yeah, and women's sales were up 40%. I think that was in 2020. And, a lot of this stuff occurred in 2020 because of all the riots and stuff. The cities were burning down.
It would make sense to me. See, I don't know how hard it is to put yourself in somebody's position where, okay, we're coming into your house, we're breaking into your house, we're breaking into your business. Is that not a situation where you should be allowed to be able to protect yourself?
Well, some of the left-wingers will think that they can sit the bad guy down
send the social worker,
have a conversation, or send in the social worker. These are delusional thoughts. These people should be slapped.
They are delusional.
It's stupid.
I agree.
How can you think that you can sit if somebody's breaking in your house, wants to kill you, you're going to sit them down and have a conversation with them? In other words, discuss his childhood.
Maybe at the other end of a shotgun, you might have a conversation with him, like, get out of here, or
I would say sit down and wait for the cops.
Right.
Yeah,
we're going to talk.
Yeah, we'll have a little conversation
Tell
while
me
the cops.
about your childhood.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I think that the gun grabbers, the left wingers, whoever, want to think that these people, these criminals, are somehow victims of society. They are the lost souls. They are victims. And I think when you take violent people and relabel them, because that's what the left does, they relabel everything. But when you take violent criminals and you relabel them as victims, you're in trouble from the get-go at that point. At that point, you are playing with fire.
Well, plus all these ideas that these people have all lead to someone not being able to protect themselves against these people
Yeah.
who consider themselves victim. It's a lose-lose scenario,
Yeah.
right?
It is a lose-lose, but it's a win. It's a lose-lose win, actually, because it's a win for those in government who want to control society. Because I always say, this is not about saving lives. It's not about stopping bad guys. It's not about stopping people from breaking into your house. It's not about any of that. It's about restricting the rights of good, lawful citizens from owning guns. They don't want that. They don't want lawful citizens to own guns because that takes the power and puts it back in the hands of the people.
Are there sources for, are there case studies for conversations with people that, because I would love to sit somebody down and say, go ahead, tell me your story. Tell me your side of it. Why do you think that, first of all, it's up to you whether I should be able to do something? That doesn't make sense right off the bat, right? That's, again, anti-basic individual liberty right off the bat. And then they carry that out to say where you can't protect yourself against this criminal, and we admit that we can't stop the criminal, but we're going to make the criminal a victim, therefore you have to suffer. It's all upside down.
Because we've allowed the conversation to grow to this point. So in other words, they'll say, well, why do you need an AR-15? Or why do you need more than 7 rounds in your magazine? Why do you need that? Well, but what we do as gun owners, unfortunately, is we argue and we justify our need.
Right. You can't argue it, right? That's the problem, is going into their conversation is the big problem.
Because the initial premise that of even entertaining that conversation is wrong. We shouldn't even be doing it. Yet we do it all the time, and I do it too. I mean, because we're talking about gun rights, we're talking about lawsuits, we're talking about all this stuff. None of it should even matter. There's a Second Amendment, period. You have no say in the matter of whether or not I should be able to have a freaking cannon.
On top of that, and you can almost guarantee that person that you are never going to shoot them. Statistically, right? God. Never in a million years.
Yeah, but that doesn't matter.
Well, but this is the whole thing, is that results don't really matter. Just what, the narrative matters, and that's where all the trouble starts, is that there's no running of a timeline, no verification of results, no taking any of that into account. I don't know how some of these people get through their day, really. I don't know how they make decisions in their personal life when they look at things so pie in the sky and they're in charge and they're superior and they're morally right and you're morally wrong. It's who's done this to people?
Who's done it?
CNN.
Who's caused this? Yeah, exactly. Media, because they want it. I don't see the media ratings. Left-wing media ratings have just tanked. I mean, they're going off. They're falling off the charts.
Well, that's what I hear. And then yet every time I get a notification on my phone from AP or something else, it's always some left slanted story about, oh, this horrible thing happened and we can't let this happen. And, it's all this kind of signaling and structuring of stuff into what? Like, where are we going with that? What's society going to look like in 20 years if these people had their way and everything was taken away and everything was controlled by people who don't really know that much about the stuff anyway, from what I can tell? Everybody argues with me, don't even know enough about what I'm talking about. Obviously not enough to be convincing. They're not persuasive, but they don't even understand that they don't know what they're talking about. This is the hard part, right?
They don't understand that they don't know.
They don't know.
Because we talked about this. They get little chunks of information, and they think that that's all they need.
Because they're programmed, right, to run with it. That's the narrative. Because they know the narrative. This is the thing. They've been programmed with the narrative. So they just plug stuff in and go. They're off the races. It's terrible.
And that's all they want to know. Because if you take in any more information than that, you run the risk of your beliefs being wrong.
It's all self-protection. It takes effort to do it, and it's scary and everything else.
Well, I think we're out of time, so let's wrap it. Next week, we'll do it again. We have so much more to talk about.
We brought something up earlier that we're going to discuss in depth more next week, right?
What was that? Okay, we'll figure it out. Thanks so much for watching The Loaded Mic on YouTube, Rumble, Simul TV, and Right America Media. You can also catch the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, whatever your favorite podcast app is, we're there. Remember, the Second Amendment is not a privilege, it's your right.
it is necessary to purge the establishment.
What she's suggesting that churches do, a focus on
that's not necessarily a good thing to start with.
But a state wasn't around when we needed the greatest generation of the 30s or 40s.
It happened before the election because there's too many Republicans that are afraid that their wrongdoings are going to.
It's unacceptable, and I'm not going to sit here, stay silent, and not call it out. I'm calling out the lies.
With rules for Thanksgiving, who the hell is he to tell us what we're supposed to do?
Do they think that we are so stupid